Hello YouTube, thank you for clicking on this video and shout out to Big Daddy Algorithm for pimping it out to you. My name is Megan and welcome to my channel. For those of you who are new here, I am a self-taught historical sewist and I recreate garments that I see in museums and fashion plates and portraits entirely by hand using only the tools and techniques that would have been available to a seamstress at the time of the garment's original creation. So I am sitting on the floor today instead of at my desk like I usually am when I film these videos, because today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. As the title suggested, I will be making a skirt out of latex. I have to go to a wedding this spring, so I decided that instead of buying my outfit for the wedding, because that's boring, I will make my outfit because I can and it's fun and it will give me a little bit of a break from this insane embroidery project that I've been working on since October and that I am going crazy with. So I've never actually worked with latex before. This is a brand new medium for me that I'm going to be exploring. So I've been looking into latex clothing for a little while now and I'm very intrigued by it, and I love that it lends kind of a different texture to an outfit, and playing around with different textures is something that I've been into lately. When I'm putting together outfits, just kind of adding different elements, different textures, like something like all in a monochrome outfit with like a sheer top and like, velvet pants, and then like, add some leather in there, and just like adding all these different textures and textural elements to an outfit I find very fascinating, and I find it adds a lot of friction and a lot of visual interest. So latex is one of those really cool textures that I've been looking into lately, and I came across this latex designer based out of London, Atsuko Kudo, and I am absolutely obsessed with her work. It is gorgeous. She does these garments that are very elegant and classy, and like some of them almost even frumpy looking, with like really high necks and long sleeves. And she has some beautiful boleros and like evening gowns and just very elegant, classy shapes and silhouettes, but they're all done in latex. And I'm obsessed. I love the contrast between the elegant, classy silhouette and the sexiness of the latex that it's made out of. I think that it just adds some punch to it. I think it just gives it a lot of like visual interest, and I'm really intrigued by that contrast. So I was perusing on her website one day and I came across this absolutely stunning mermaid skirt made entirely out of latex, and it is like floor length with a bit of a train, and my jaw just fell to the floor. It was the most beautiful skirt I have ever seen. And I literally almost bought it like right then and there, because I saw this skirt and I was like, oh, perfect, because like I have to go to a wedding in the spring, and I thought, wow, I can wear that to the wedding. It's perfect. But with the exchange rate and the VAT and the shipping costs, this skirt would have cost me well over $600, which is a little bit outside my snack bracket. I wouldn't mind spending $600 on an item of clothing that was like ethically made, locally sourced by like a small designer who's local, to support them. And if it was something that I was going to wear like every day, all the time, if it was something that was going to become like a staple in my wardrobe for like the rest of my life, then sure, it would be worth $600, because in that case, I would look at it as cost per wear and not cost up front. But a latex mermaid skirt is not something that I'm going to be wearing all the time. So I just couldn't justify spending like $600 on it. But then having a closer look at it, I realized, hey, last year I made a mermaid skirt for my $18.99 winter walking outfit. And that was essentially the same shape, and I did it out of wool, which is a much less forgiving material than latex is. So I thought, wait a second, I've already made this skirt, so why don't I just make it out of latex, and I can just figure out how to work with latex. So me being me, once I get an idea into my head, I just like have to do it, and then I become obsessed with it, and it's like all that I can think about, and my entire life just like distills down to the manifestation of this idea. Like I need to bring it into reality. And so I started to feel that way about this skirt. So I just like did all this research on what I would need to get started making latex clothing. And I ordered all the supplies that I would need. It's very different from sewing, because you can't actually like sew with latex. You have to glue it together. So I had to order the glue, the solvent, the little roller thing that you roll the seams with. I had to order like a rotary cutter, of course, latex shiner, talcum powder, the latex itself. So once everything was said and done and I had all of my materials in, the end cost was about $300, which is still a lot for like a DIY garment, but not nearly as much as the actual skirt would have been from Atsuko Kudo. And $300 is like around what I spend on my projects anyway. Like when I do my historical builds, when I buy the silk taffeta, it usually costs around like $250, $300 for the materials. So I'm kind of used to spending that on my projects anyway. So it wasn't really like a big deal to do that this time around. Although this is going to be a huge learning curve for me. So like I am a little bit worried about messing up and then like wasting all that money on latex, because I'm used to working with silk, but I'm not used to working with latex. So I'm just going to have to be really careful and make sure that I go slowly and do it step by step. But I think it's going to be fine. So I'm actually really excited to work with this new material, and I have a pattern here. I bought the pattern off of Etsy. I didn't draft it because, like I said, I've already made a skirt like this, and just because latex is such a new material for me, I didn't want to have to go through like the learning curve of working with the latex and also pattern drafting on top of that. So I thought whatever I can do to just make this process easier on myself, I'm going to. I should have known. I should have known right there. Commercial patterns never ever work out for me. It always works better when I draft my own patterns. This should have been my first clue, yet somehow it was not. So that's why I bought the pattern. I still am gonna have to adjust it a lot because this pattern was originally made for like woven material, like silk or linen or even polyester or cotton, which doesn't stretch. Latex is very, very stretchy. It has like a three-way stretch to it. So I'm gonna have to modify this pattern to account for the stretch. And based on the research that I've already done, I'm going to have to subtract like 10% from all the measurements of this garment in order for it to work with latex. So basically what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to tape this pattern together, cut out the pieces, then I'm going to do a mock-up on like some stretchy polyester that I just have in my stash. And it's not going to be as stretchy as the latex, but it will give me like a good idea of how this will fit once I account for the shrinkage. So I'm going to do that, and then I will adjust the mock-up as needed, and then I'm going to move on to my actual latex and put it together. So I'm going to bring you guys along with me step for step on this ride. And I want to emphasize that this is not a tutorial. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes because, as I said, I've never worked with latex before. This is a brand new thing for me. So I don't want you guys like copying every single thing I do, because then you're going to make every single mistake that I make. So this is not a tutorial. This is simply an adventure, and I am inviting you guys along for the ride. You can come watch me mess up. I'm sure that if any of you who are watching have worked with latex before, you're probably going to watch this video and be like, what the fuck is this girl doing? I'm sorry for your sanity, but again, this is a learning curve for me. I've never done this before. So I hope that this video inspires you to finally start that thing that you've been wanting to try and just dive in there and do it, because that's the only way that you're going to get it done, is if you just fucking do it. And it's not always going to turn out the way you want, but that's okay. Then you just try again, and eventually at some point it will, because everything takes practice. And we don't just wake up being good at things. We have to try, and we have to practice, and we have to put in the work and the dedication every day before we get good at them. So that's my spiel for today. I'm going to get started and go ahead and put this pattern together, and I will just sort of film my process as I go. And let's keep our fingers crossed that this turns into the beautiful skirt that I have in my mind, and that I don't end up wasting $300. All right. Okay, let's go. From here on out, a lot of this video is shot vertically because I spend way too much time on TikTok. The absolute shitstorm of messiness and chaos that is this video is actually pretty representative of how the rest of the skirt project went. 10 points for foreshadowing. Okay, so I just finished taping the pattern together, and here it is. And I can already tell just by looking at it that this skirt is going to be too short. I'm probably going to have to add a couple inches. This is a common problem with me and commercial patterns, because they are always too short in the legs and in the arms, because I have gigantic monkey limbs that just go on forever, and literally the only things on my body are arms and legs. That is just the entirety of my body, just arms and legs. So nothing ever fits right because it's always too short. So I always have to adjust patterns to make them longer. So I'm gonna have to do that with this skirt. Although it does have a waistband, which is quite thick. Like that's a good 4 or 5 inches right there. So that might add just enough length to the skirt once you account for like the waistband, so that I don't have to actually lengthen it anymore. So I'm hoping that's the case. I'm definitely going to have to take this pattern in a lot because, like I said before, it was meant for non-stretchy fabric and my latex is very stretchy. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out how much width I need to take out of each of these pattern pieces. So let's go do some math. Okay, so I can see already the waistband at the smallest size is 28 inches. So that is humongous because my waist is 25 inches. So I'm already gonna have to take 3 inches off this waistband just for it to like fit me. If it was a woven fabric, that's not even accounting for stretch. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work out the math first on the waistband and then get that right. And then I'm going to use the same formula on the rest of these pattern pieces. So I think that's how I'm going to tackle this. I think, okay, so yeah, I think actually, no, never mind. I'm going to cut out the waistband at 28 inches. Then I'm going to wrap it around my body and make sure that it actually is 28 inches and I'm not just like crazy right now. And then I can always like lop 3 inches off of that if I need to. But that way, at least if it turns out that this, for whatever reason, is correct, then I haven't like just cut off 3 inches from my pattern unnecessarily. So we're gonna go ahead and try this. All right, this is what I mean by this is not a tutorial. I'm literally just fucking around here trying to figure this out. So, all right, just do it, Megan, just do it. So shockingly, this actually does fit me. I thought it was gonna be way too big, but it's not. So I'm glad that I decided not to cut off more before trying it on first. Also it sits like really high, so I think I kind of want, like, I don't want it to sit that high on my waist. I want it to sit a little bit lower, like that. So if that's the case, and I want it to sit like here, then this is actually fine. Like, I don't think I actually need to take anything out of this, like, at all. Because there's a gap here, but that's okay because the latex will stretch. That's what you want. You want that negative ease, right? Like when you make a corset. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut out the rest of the pattern pieces like in the smallest size, and that should be fine. Like I shouldn't have to add any ease into those seams in theory. If like this is how it's gonna work out, then perhaps math is averted. Okay, I'm done. And I forgot that the waistband is supposed to actually be like folded over, which means it is supposed to sit right at my waist, which means it is too big and I do have to shrink it. So I do need math after all. You can see in the photo that the waistband is like really small and it's like folded over the top. So like, where is it? Okay, so like the reason that it's so thick is because this is the fold line, and then like you actually sew the skirt into it, and then you like fold the waistband over and then sew it down. And like I'm dumb because I know this. I've sewn like so many waistbands into so many skirts, but like because I'm thinking latex, and you don't have to do that with latex, then I totally just forgot that like this is meant to be folded over. So the waistband is actually not this thick at all. It's actually this thick, which means I am going to have to also add length to this, which means I'm going to have to take 3 inches off of this and then subtract the 10% for negative ease. So I have to do math after all. Good Lord. All right, let's go. Okay, so just testing out the length, I actually don't think I need to add any length at all because I just kind of folded over the waistband here and tucked this inside, and it falls like exactly on the floor. And the thing is, like with the front of skirts, you never want it to like drag on the floor because you're gonna have to obviously walk, and if the front of the skirt is dragging on the floor, you're gonna trip over it. So what you want is you want it to just kind of hit the floor but leave the tiniest little gap for your toes to just slide on through. And this does that like when it sits right at my waistline. So I'm happy with that. The only thing that I have to consider is my shoes. I will be wearing like a tiny little kitten heel with this skirt, so That's gonna raise me up about this much, which also raises the level of the hemline as well. So it leaves a little bit more of a gap, which I'm not sure I like. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and maybe add a 1/2 inch to 1 inch of length all the way around. Also, I want the back to have a little bit of a train, so I think by adding maybe like a 1/2 inch to 1 inch all the way around, that will just sort of give the back that nice little sweep that I'm looking for, and it will still allow me to like walk properly at the front here without tripping over my skirt. So it is the following morning. I decided not to tackle the math last night because from my experience drafting patterns and altering patterns, it is generally ill-advised to attempt any kind of math past 12:30 at night. It's just not going to go well. So I put the pattern down and decided to save it for this morning. So now I have to actually figure out how much to reduce this pattern by. So I'm going to start with a waistband first, reduce that by about 10% because that's easy. It's just a horizontal measurement that I have to reduce it by. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide 10% by 4, which is the amount of pattern pieces that I have, and then reduce each piece by that percentage, whatever it is. I have no idea if this is correct or not. It was not, in fact, correct. The only way to find out is just to do it, so let's go. Wait, no, I lied. I think I'm just going to like tape it together, figure out what the finished width is. Then I'm going to figure out what 10% of that width is. Stop, Megan, stop. Just quit while you're ahead. Just stop. But I think the best way is just to show you, so let's go. Okay, so it says here that the seam allowance is included and the side and back center seams are 5/8 of an inch, which is approximately 1.5 centimeters. So that's how much seam allowance they give you. The thing about buying commercial patterns is that they always include the seam allowance as like a net measurement, which I hate because when I make my own patterns, I never ever include the seam allowance. I just make the pattern like as it is. And then when I go to actually cut out my fabric, I just add in a seam allowance to it. So I like trace the pattern out on my fabric, and then when I go to cut it out, I just cut out like about 1 inch away from the line that I marked, and that gives me a seam allowance because I sew everything by hand. So I don't have like a sewing machine that can automatically calculate my seam allowance for me. And I also like to be able to make my own seam allowances because I like to have extra fabric in the seams, because if I ever get too big for my clothes, then I have some extra fabric to work with to be able to let it out. So it just adds to the longevity of a garment. I can't do that here though. This pattern is going to have to be net because I have to reduce it for negative ease. So right away, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to each of my pattern pieces and I'm going to figure out 1.5 centimeters on each side, and I'm going to just take that out right away. So that's going to just subtract the seam allowance from here, which is going to give me like the net measurement of the pattern, and then that's the measurement that I want to reduce. If I try to reduce it with the seam allowance, I'm going to end up with a garment that's still too big. So I'm going to do that first, and then I think I'm actually going to make a mock-up of it just out of whatever fabric I have in my stash. It doesn't have to be stretchy, but the point of doing the mock-up is just to be able to measure the circumference of the garment once it's fully constructed, because that is the measurement that I'm going to have to reduce. So I'm scared to do that just by measuring the pattern pieces because I might not get the correct measurement, and I'm honestly not sure if I should subtract 10% from each piece or if I need to subtract 10% from like the whole entire garment itself. So the best way to just figure that out is just to do it. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the seam allowance out, and then I'm gonna make a mock-up, and then we're gonna go from there.
Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my...
Alright, so I've gone ahead and subtracted the seam allowance from all of my pattern pieces. Now I have to reduce them, and while I was cutting out the seam allowance, I kind of thought that maybe what I'll do is I'll start with a waistband and I'll subtract that by 10% because I know the waistband is 25 inches. So if I subtract it by 10%, I'm gonna have to take off like well, it's gonna end up being 22.5 inches. So then what I'm gonna do is measure the tops of each of these pieces, and then I'm going to add up those measurements, and then they should add up to 22.5. They're not going to, because I haven't reduced this yet. So what I'm gonna do is add this up, and then whatever that number is, I'm going to subtract 22.5 from that number, and then that should give me the final measurement of what each of these pieces should be. That seems like the most straightforward way of doing this. I am sweating a little bit, but this should be okay, because once I finish that process, I can go ahead and start cutting out the latex. So here we go. Okay, so we're gonna work out these measurements. So my natural waist is 25 inches. Okay, so we need to subtract 10% of that. So if I go onto my calculator, okay, so we have 25 times 0.10, which gives us 2.5. So that means I have to subtract 2.5 inches from the waistband. So this is the final measurement of my waistband. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark out here. So I've got my yardstick up against my waistband, and I'm going to go ahead and mark 22.5 inches. So this is what I'm going to cut away, and that should give me my waistband minus 10%. Okay, so this is my waistband at 22.5 inches. That is my waist measurement minus 10%. So now I'm going to take all of these pieces, and I'm going to measure the tops of each one. This one I have to times by 2 because the front center piece is supposed to be cut on the fold, but you can't cut latex on the fold. So when I go to actually cut it out, I'm gonna have to like flip this over and just cut the front center piece as like one big piece. So this I'm gonna have to double. So it's this times 2 plus this plus this plus this. And that's going to give me a final measurement, which is going to be bigger than this because I've subtracted 10%. So when I have this final measurement, then I am going to subtract 22.5, which is this measurement here, from the total measurement of all of the tops of these pieces. And then I'm going to divide that by 5, and that's how much I have to reduce each of these pieces by. So that should allow for all of this to fit nicely into the waistband when I go to put the skirt together, which will ensure a good fit because the curvature of the hips is already taken into account with the pattern drafting. So I don't have to like calculate for that. I should just be able to fit this into this, and then everything else should just kind of work out. Hopefully that's the plan. I really hope that there's not something that I'm forgetting or not thinking of. That is entirely possible, but this is the best plan I have, so we're just gonna go with that. Okay, so I have all of my measurements of all my pieces, so I'm gonna go ahead and add all of these together, and that's gonna give me what the final circumference of that waist is. Okay, so I've added that all up, which equals 15.5 inches. Now, wait, fuck, I just made a mistake. I just realized that the center front piece I doubled, but I have to double all the rest of the measurements also because I have to cut them out twice to account for like 2 sides of the skirt. So I told you math is not my thing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and double all of those measurements, then add them up, then that should give me the correct circumference of the skirt. All right, here we go. So 3.5 times 2 equals 7.
Plus 3.5 times 2 equals 7.
A lot of boring math later.
Okay, so I've gone ahead and reduced those measurements, and then I also taped it together just to kind of get a sense of how big it would be. And I allowed for the same amount of like seam allowance that I'm going to use for the glue. So as you can see, it sort of covers approximately half the waistband, because essentially it's going to be this and then flipped over, and that's going to be the entire circumference of the skirt. So it does appear to fit. Oh my God, I'm having trouble focusing. I hope that's not foreshadowing. It was in fact foreshadowing. Anyway, so that should fit just fine. I think I reduced enough. So if anything, if it turns out to be too big, I can always just increase the seam allowance of the glue. I was so young and innocent. I had no idea. So I think I'm feeling good about this, which means it's time to go ahead and cut out the latex and start gluing it together, which terrifies me to my soul, and I'm procrastinating hardcore. So that means it's time to just dive in and do it. Okay, so here I am in my basement where I'm going to be completing the rest of this project because I need a flat, smooth surface. All of this concrete provides the perfect surface for me to cut out this latex. So I bought 2 different thicknesses of latex, one for the waistband and one for the skirt pieces. So this right here behind me is 0.5 millimeter latex, and my skirt is 0.4 millimeter. And the reason that I did that is because the thickness of the waistband needs to be greater than the thickness of the actual skirt panels, because the waistband is what's going to cinch in and hold everything together. So you need something a little more substantial there. So this is the piece I'm feeling most confident about. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out my waistband, and then I'm going to cut out the rest of my skirt pieces, and we're going to go from there. I'm feeling really terrified to do this. I found myself procrastinating. I put away my laundry. I ate some lunch. I played with my dog for a bit, and I realized at that point that I was procrastinating because I am terrified to actually do this. So that's when I was like, no, Megan, suck it up, just do it. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this step by step. First step is to cut out my pattern pieces, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now.
Reimagined.
Okay, so now I've got that pattern piece marked out on my latex, and I left myself a little bit of a seam allowance for the glue to settle in. So I'm going to go ahead and leave myself approximately the same amount on the other side as well, and on the 2 ends here, and that should give me my seam allowance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and slip a cutting mat underneath and cut this out with a rotary cutter. You can't use scissors on latex because when you cut it out, it ends up with kind of a jagged edge. So to get that like nice smooth edge like this, we need to use a rotary cutter. So that's a learning curve for me also. I've never used one before. So hey, first time for everything, right?
Artlist.io.
Okay, so here is my center front piece all traced out. I had to flip it over on one side. So I basically traced one side, flipped it over, and then traced the other side. On like a normal piece of fabric, I would have traced and cut this on the fold, and like this would have been the fold of the fabric. But because you can't do that with latex, I had to just like open it up and flip it over and do it on both sides. So that is the entire center front piece. So I'm going to go ahead and trace my other pieces, and then I will check back in with you guys once I'm ready to cut out, because you've seen me trace one, you don't need to see me trace the rest of them. All right, all of my pieces are cut out, and it's hard to see how big this is, but just to give you an idea of scale, here is my foot. Here are the pieces. So that was quite a lot of tracing. What I did was I went ahead and marked on each piece what it actually was. So we have like side back, we have center front, we have the other side for the side back, and that's just so that I don't get confused when I actually cut out the pieces and then mix them up and then glue them together wrong. Now that I'm done tracing everything, I'm gonna go ahead and cut out my skirt pieces. I have run into an issue already. The rotary cutter is like either not sharp enough to go through the latex, or my cutting technique just sucks, which is entirely possible because I've never used a rotary cutter before. So I'm getting these like really jagged edges when I cut, which is exactly what you don't want. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut with my scissors because I'm pretty dexterous with my scissors and I'm confident that I can get a much cleaner cut than I did with the rotary. So I'm just gonna go ahead and continue on with the scissors and we're gonna see how this goes. There we go. That is a much cleaner cut than with the rotary cutter. Just to give you an example, this is with the rotary cutter, this is with the scissors. So I'm just gonna continue on with my scissors because I'm getting a much cleaner edge this way. And I'm also in far less danger of slicing off my finger. So we're just gonna go ahead and cut this out like I would any other normal fabric. Okay, here are all my pieces cut out, and I just realized that I have filmed like half this video in vertical and not horizontal because I've been on TikTok too much and that's what I'm used to. So sorry about that. This is gonna be one wonky video, but hey, in the spirit of making mistakes, I'd rather make the mistake with my camera angles than with my actual skirt. So I'll take what I can get. So here we are, here's our pieces. I'm gonna go ahead and glue them together. The next step is that I have to clean them with solvent and then I can go ahead and glue. So I'm terrified, but I've gotten this far so I can push through and get to the next step, right? Right. Okay, so now that I've got all my pieces cut out, the next thing I have to do is decide which seams are going to be glued to which seams. So if, for example, I'm applying glue to this seam, then I'm going to have to figure out which seam is going to be glued to it. So it's going to end up being the wrong side of one piece and the right side of the other piece, which I know makes no sense right now. It doesn't make any sense to me either, so I'm just trying to figure this out and desperately hope that I don't put glue on the wrong sides of things. So before I even start gluing though, I need to clean up the latex because when you buy latex, it comes covered in talc powder, which like keeps it from sticking together. So I have to clean off all of the talc powder and just make sure that my latex is nice and clean to start off with. So to do that, I'm going to use mineral spirits and a rag, and this stuff is super toxic, so that's why I'm wearing my latex gloves. And I've opened some windows so that the fumes have a place to go because this is really toxic. Also, the glue that I'm using for this is toxic as well, so if you are working with your own latex, just make sure that you're in a well-ventilated area before you start. So I'm gonna go ahead and figure out which seam is gonna be glued to which seam, and then I will start applying the solvent. Okay, so I've got my seams all cleaned and dried. What I'm gonna do now is add this painter's tape to the back, which will keep the latex from curling when I add the glue. So that's just gonna help to stabilize my material while I apply the glue and while the glue dries. Okay, so now I've gone ahead and added masking tape to the undersides of those seams that I'm gonna paint with glue. So now I can go ahead and actually add my glue. So this is the part before the hard part. Once the glue is added, then, what the hell is going on here? God, okay. Once the glue is added, then I have to wait for it to dry a little bit and get tacky, and then I can actually stick this first thing together, you know what I mean, whatever. So I'm starting with the two center back pieces because it's just like a straight seam. There's no curves involved, and that was like the easiest to figure out how to go together. So it's also in the back, so when I inevitably fuck this up, it won't be as visible as like the front will be. So I thought this would be a good place to start. So all right, no more procrastinating, let's go do this. Well, this is a bloody disaster.
That was a hot mess inside a dumpster fire, inside a train wreck.
I realized halfway through gluing this seam that I had bought the wrong type of adhesive, and what I actually needed was rubber cement and not contact cement, which is what I was using. The contact cement was tacking up on the latex and not actually melting and bonding it, which means that the seams would bust open at the slightest bit of pressure. Not exactly something you want when you're at a wedding. At least, not the type of wedding that I'll be attending. So I had to stop what I was doing and order some rubber cement before I could finish this project, much to my annoyance. Hello. It is 2 days later, and I finally got my new glue in. It is Elmer's rubber cement, and after that last gluing fiasco with the contact cement, I did some more research into what kind of adhesives I would need. What you want to do is like not necessarily stick the latex pieces together, but you want to actually like melt and meld them together so that it becomes like one continuous piece of latex rather than like the different pieces of the garment. So regular adhesive, even really strong adhesive like the contact cement I was using, just is not going to cut it. So what you actually need is something solvent based that contains latex, because the latex in the glue is what's going to bond to the latex sheets. So after doing some research, I picked up this can of Elmer's rubber cement, and other people who make latex garments have had success with it. So I really hope it works, because if it doesn't, then I have to order this like stupid expensive stuff from the States, which is going to cost me like $150 and take like a month to get here. And I really just don't want to spend that much money or time waiting for glue that I'm going to use once and then never again. So cross your fingers that this works. I'm going to try it again. I tried out like a little test piece this afternoon and it seemed to work fine. So I'm hoping that it will carry out to the rest of this garment, but we'll see. Okay, so I've got that first seam. It seems to be holding, which I'm really happy about. It's not perfect. There's some lumps and stuff in it, but that's okay. I'm not too concerned. It's the center back seam anyway, so it's fine. And I think if I just turn it over to the other side, it will be less lumpy. So I think maybe this will just be the wrong side of the garment anyway. So yeah, I mean, okay, I'm just happy that it's sticking together. I will worry about perfection later.
Thousands of tears later.
Okay, this is such a bloody mess. Okay, so this is the center back seam. It actually went together pretty good. There's a few little wonky bits here that I don't love, but I think the problem is that because these pieces are like really curved, gluing this latex on this curved seam is like almost impossible because I'm getting all these little bubbles and warps. So I think I might actually just completely go back to the drawing board, and I might take this piece of the 5mm latex and just make a really simple like knee-length skirt out of it, and just like glue the two side seams because those will be straight seams. And then I'll take all of these pieces, cut them off here, glue them all together because we'll have the straight seam here, so they should go together fine. And then I will take this and then glue it like into the mini skirt. So basically what it's gonna end up being is like, it's hard to tell from this angle, but basically what it's gonna end up being is like a skirt that wraps around here, just like a plain pencil skirt that's gonna have like a ruffle that goes down to the knee, so it'll still have the mermaid shape, but it'll just be a lot easier to glue. So that's my game plan. I'm a little scared about this, but like it's just not gonna work. Like the way that I have it now, it's just gonna be bubbled and warped. Like this pattern is not meant for latex at all. Like this is clearly meant for a woven fabric. It's got curves already built into it. With latex, you don't need to have curves built into the pattern. As I'm quickly discovering, it just has to be straight lines as much as possible. So I'm gonna just go and like actually remake this pattern into straight lines, and I'm gonna glue it, and I'm gonna try that and see how it works. This is like the most chaotic thing I have ever made ever.
Push me to my best, so treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like, and find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself.
Okay, so I've just gone and drafted a really simple basic pencil skirt pattern, and I'm going to cut out 2 of these of the latex, glue them together, and I think I will have the zipper at the side. So I'm going to glue one entire side together, and then the other side I'm going to leave like half unglued here to make room for the zipper. And then I think I'm just gonna take a longer piece of latex and just kind of make like a ruffle at the bottom, and that will be my mermaid skirt. So good thing I bought extra latex. This is always why I buy extra fabric, for this reason exactly.
What's the matter? Mommy's working. What's the matter? What, Ponce? What's the matter? What's wrong? Kiss, kiss? Kiss, kiss? What's the matter? What? Yeah, okay. Oh, watch the scissors. Careful. You gotta be careful. Hi. What's the matter? What's the matter? Mommy's doing her work right now. Yeah? Gotta do my skirt? Do you wanna help? You wanna help Mommy? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I went ahead and just cut out 2 new pieces of latex. So I just drafted a really simple pencil skirt, and I have the front and the back, and then I also went ahead and just chopped the waistband in half. So I think my new plan of attack is I'm going to glue the waistband to each piece, then I'm going to glue one of the 2 sides together. Then I'm going to go over to my long pieces here from my original pattern, and I'm going to chop them all off at about the knee, glue all of these straight seams together. Then I'm going to glue them into the bottom here. This is where the knees are. And then when that's all done, I'm going to bring everything together and install the zipper. So it's already like 9:30, so I'm probably not going to finish this today like I wanted to, but hopefully I can at least get like everything up to the zipper portion done, and then I can just handle that tomorrow. So that's my new plan of attack. I hope that this works. Okay, so I've gone ahead and just chopped off the tops of those little original pattern mermaid skirt thingies. And then here's the pencil skirt that I drafted, and I've already sort of glued together. It looks kind of wonky because like there's a curve in it, but I sort of tried it on and it works, so I'm happy with it. So now what I'm going to do is glue all of these together, which you can see I've already started. This is sort of when I realized that this pattern that I originally bought was not going to work. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue all these pieces together into like one straight line. Then I'm going to glue that into here, which this is going to be too wide for this. So I'm going to end up having to like trim down the top of it. And then I'm going to glue that into here, and then I can put the zipper in. So I'm moving on a song and a prayer here, guys. So I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just winging it. It's 11 o'clock at night. I've been at this for 6 hours. There's a lot of solvent fumes. This is just like the most chaotic thing I have ever made. Really, this is insane. Guys, we have a skirt. It's all like bunched up now, but I just sort of like pseudo tried it on and it actually works, which I am completely amazed by. But essentially we've got the top part here. So this part is like fitted. This part is like the mermaid skirt sort of in a circle. So what I have to do now is I have to glue these long seams together, and I marked out on the top where the zipper is going to go. So the zipper is like 8.5 inches. So I have to glue the long seams together up to here, then add in the zipper, then I'm fucking done. So what I did, got the zipper here, this like hell of a mess going on, but essentially what I had to do is add liquid latex to the zipper because latex will not stick to cloth. So I had to add the liquid latex to the zipper, which I literally just slopped it on. It's like the messiest shit ever. And then I can add the zipper to here, and then I'm done. Okay, it's like midnight. I've been working on this since 5 o'clock when I finished work. So let's hope that we can actually finish this tonight, and then I can clean up this god-awful mess in my basement, and me and my puppy can go to bed. Right, Bonsai? He's such a good boy. He's been sitting here keeping me company this whole time. Bonsai, are you a good boy? Are you a good boy? Yeah, you're my buddy. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, and my skirt is done. It's fucking done. The skirt that cost me $300 and a lot of my sanity. Here it is. It just looks like a giant trash can heap, but I got the zipper in, so that's good. There it is. It's still really messy looking because I haven't cleaned it yet, but essentially I just like glued some strips of latex on the other side of the zipper just to reinforce it. And there's our zipper. So tomorrow, once all of the glue has finished curing, I'm going to go in with the solvent and just like erase all of these marks that I've made, clean it up, and then I can try it on. But I can't actually try this on until tomorrow because I have to let this all dry first, lest I pull apart all my hard work and what remains of my sanity. So I'm super excited to put this on. I sort of pseudo tried it on when I drafted the pattern, and it like fit really well. It looked really nice. So hopefully I didn't fuck everything up with the zipper. I'm gonna go have a shower and call my boyfriend and cry. All right, so it's been just a little over 24 hours since I finished my skirt, so the glue has had time to cure. So everything looks good. Let's see, the zipper looks fine. Okay, so what I have to do is I have to then take my solvent and I'm just gonna clean this up. I have like bits of glue and white gel pen marks all over this. There's bits of glue here on the zipper, so I just have to give this a really good clean with the solvent, and then I'm going to submerge it in water, give it a shine with my latex shiner, and I can try this on. So the moment of truth approaches. Well, that was a journey. And considering how absolutely chaotic it was and the fact that I had to basically redraft this pattern from scratch at the 11th hour when I was already knee-deep in latex and solvent and glue, I think that overall I did a pretty good job. The learning curve was like this. So all those things taken into consideration, I am very proud of the skirt that I made, and I will wear this with pride at the wedding that I have to attend in the spring. I also made this top that I'm wearing. It was a super quick one-day make that I threw together while I was waiting for my new glue to come in. And it's made out of like a really pretty black silk crepe, and I will be also posting a tutorial on how I made this top. I was a responsible YouTuber and filmed the whole process, so I will be posting that next, probably sometime next week after this video goes out. I also have to make a leather purse that I'm going to be wearing as well, so I will be doing a tutorial on how I made that. And in addition to the top and the skirt, I will be wearing my leather harness, and I'm going to be wearing some like chains on my arms, some body jewelry, and of course I will have my new tattoo on this arm by then, so that will just help like edge this whole thing up a bit. But overall, it's giving like dark goddess Lilith vibes, which I am into. I feel like this whole outfit is just a really good embodiment of who I am as a person, and it like does a really good job of incorporating all my styles, because we've got like the classy shape of the mermaid skirt and the bohemian style of the top. And we've got the dark goddess edgy vibes, and also the skirt is like mildly historical in silhouette, so I feel like it just really nicely melds together all of my very wildly different aesthetics that I constantly bounce back and forth between. So I feel very much like myself in this outfit, which of course is the point of clothing. We always want to feel like ourselves when we get dressed. That is the main thing. So thank you for joining me on this wild ride. I can say that now that it's done. If you had asked me like 2 nights ago at 12:30 in the morning, I would have said I hate this, it's the worst thing ever, but I'm really glad that I stuck with it and stuck it out, because yeah, I think I got something really cool out of it. So thanks for watching this all the way through, for the few of you who actually do that. And for the rest of you, I have seen that a lot of you watch my videos but haven't actually subscribed to my channel, so why don't you just go ahead and do that? If I could do all this crazy latex making for you guys, you can hit that subscribe button for me. Also, click the notification bell so that you are aware of when I post new videos, because I don't have a schedule. I just film and post videos like whenever the hell I want, so there's no reliable like, oh, Megan posts on Saturdays, for those of you who even care about that. So definitely, if you subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell, because then you will know when I've actually posted a video. And give this video a like if you liked it, or just, hey, throw me a pity like, because look what I did. It was hard work, okay? So thank you for joining me, guys. I will catch you in the next one. I hope you all have a wonderful long weekend. Eat lots of candy for me. Love you. Toodaloo.